Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. The JAMODI podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. This may be a hard question, but for a high school coach, dealing with that 14 to 18-year-old range where, and I'm not saying that there's a huge difference between them and college kids. Golly, some of them are 18, right? It's around the same age, but it might be hard to answer. What are some ways where you could see a coach giving a little bit more ownership to some of those people that over time, over years, he's seen that they've earned it?
Oh, that's great. That's a great, and I will say this. As you were speaking, Matt, I thought about that, saying, depending on the level and the maturity level, not the level of coaching you're at, and then the maturity level of your players, you have to be very discerning about, because you got to be careful. Ownership is a very powerful thing. And once you hand it over, it's hard to pull back right away. So I think you do have to make sure that those folks have earned it. But now what you're asking, to make sure that I'm clear, are ways that you can help create that within a team or with players?
Yeah, ways to show or give them ownership, or because you said, there are times where she would hand it over, or give what are some, and I hope you don't take disrespect to this, but while you're talking, some ideas do pop in my head, and I don't want to be, the head of a snake that when I'm not there, the thing falls apart. Because then really our culture it's not us creating it. It's not our standards. It's a person. It's a personality. And golly, there's big organizations, I feel like, that get in trouble for that. The head of the personality is it, and then there's really no substance underneath it. And then when that person, when their character, or something happens, the whole thing collapses. My thought was maybe because we have second period athletics here. It's 43 minutes long. And each day there are some parts of the workout that, 2-ball Tuesdays, we're going to hit 2-ball at the beginning of Tuesdays. There's an idea of, what if I just walked in? Because I usually have the clock going. I got my whistle. I got the music going. I'm energetic. What if I just sat there?
Yeah.
And what if I let the clock go? And I just kind of, not looking pissed off or anything, but just sat there and just saw, could they get themselves going? What would it look like if I didn't even stop them after that? Because we usually go for 4 to 5 minutes. Do they have something in their catalog that, hey, let's go to 3-step explosion, and then take themselves to it? And then I was kind of imagining, the joy and the celebration that we could have after it's what I would believe and hope that it would be completed successfully, or the teaching moment of, guys, listen, I can't be the one running this, take ownership of it. That book, Extreme Ownership, is right behind me. I'm going through it at this moment. Yep. And when you told that story, I just read it, but I don't know, that was an idea of something, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Oh, no, and I think that's a good fact. What you just said there reminded me of an incident years ago. One of my old coaches in Bay City, Michigan, used to pull this once or twice a year on teams that he coached. He would not show up to start practice, and he would now, where his gym where he was, he could go up to the upper level, and there's kind of a little area he could see down, but they couldn't see him. And so he would watch to see how they would react, because normally he was a stickler. It was 3:30 practice, and man, at 3:25, you better be laced up, ready to go, warmed up. And at 3:29, that whistle blew. And then once every blue moon, he wouldn't show up. Might be once or twice a year. He would see how the team reacted, who took charge, how long maybe it took them, and he said, he goes, one year I remember, he said, my 2 captains, They jumped right into it, said, okay, guys, 3-ball shooting. Boom, here we go. Now we're going into this. Now we're going to pacer drill. And he said, I knew then, I didn't know. I thought we had a good team, but one thing I knew, we had a team that was squared away with leadership. These guys just took charge. I wasn't there. So that's one thing, certainly. Here are some other things over the years, ideas. I love this, Don. I learned this from Don Meyer. He would whisper to one player. You'd be doing one drill, and he'd say, okay, Matt, when the clock hits 8:02, I want you to get them to the other end of the floor. We're going to do 3-on-3 Nagani drill. Boom. No one else heard it but you and him. So at 8:02, all of a sudden, Matt's crying out, Nagani drill, other end, go. And now we're seeing, hey, does Matt have the capability and the propensity to take charge and to communicate and to get teammates doing stuff like that? Asking players input, like a great way for me is during film sessions, is asking players, getting their, and I teach like this anyway. I'm very big in the Socratic method of asking questions. I like to teach by asking questions. So again, asking players what they see, what's going on, what were they thinking, or maybe showing a short clip of an opponent, say, okay, what are your thoughts? What do you think of Indiana? You've just seen a 4-minute thing. What do you think of this team? Tell me what you see as their strengths, who are their best players, etc. That's something I think that's very good. Asking players something, and again, you have to be careful because you don't want to ask everybody. You don't want to make this long. Maybe some of your younger players are not ready for this, but some of your veterans certainly say, okay, we played 3 games. All right, Joey, what are we good at? What do you think we got to work on, Joey? Maybe this is after practice. It's not, before practice. Now, sometimes you might before practice. I've talked to coaches that say they have a plan, but then they might say, okay, what's one thing that you guys think we need to work on today? I've got a plan here, but give me one thing that you guys think we need to work on. And, they're soliciting input. One of the things that I found that people will support what they help to create. So giving them some avenues to have input and getting their thoughts. Number one, they're part of the process of creating it. Number two, I think you show that you value them and you value what they think. And I think that in and of itself is a very valuable weapon and a very valuable tool to create ownership. So I think those are some ways that you can do that. Allowing players part of the decision. I remember Dean Smith used to say this all the time. He'd say, I give them input and a voice on everything that's not important. So we're going to practice on Saturday. Okay, Michael, Sam, James, do you want to practice at 10 a.m. or do you want to practice at 11:30 a.m.? They get to say, but the point is that you are gradually, it's not something that happens in a day or a week even, but through these little things, you can gradually create ownership. One of the things also, this was another great thing Pat used to do. She'd pull one of the veterans or older players aside and say, hey, have you talked to Lori in the last week or two? I think she's kind of struggling. What I need you to do is I need you to spend some time with Lori. Take her out for a lunch or just, maybe just, buy her some ice cream somewhere. You guys just sit down, have a slice of pizza. I need you to talk to Lori and see how she's doing. Let me know. So that player really felt like, wow, Pat is trusting me almost like an assistant coach. Go talk to Lori, see how she's doing, feel her out. Is everything okay? And then let me know how I can help her. So I think there are a lot of little things, Matt, that can add up to being big things by giving ownership to your players and just helping them to feel that, hey, I'm not just here. I'm not just wearing a uniform. I'm helping this is my team. Yeah. This is our team, but also this is my team. I'm having a real big stake in this thing, and I want it to go well. So I think those are all things that I found that have worked over the years.
I love that Dean Smith quote about giving up control of some of those things that just aren't really that important. And I think that's a great activity for coaches to, just write down a list of what are all the little, you could call them standards, but all of the little things that you require and or that you don't allow them to do, or so mottos on t-shirts. Like I used to always try to be so clever with what I teach. And then I just started giving them, you seniors, come up with a couple mottos you'd love to have on a shirt. Golly, those were their favorite shirts. Warm up music, at a private Christian school, as long as it's Christian rap, you guys tell me the 6 or 7 songs you want. Instead of me picking Metallica or something, that wouldn't work at Faith. But like something old that I would give me fuel, I would love that. But
MMA, the UFC, right. They're coming
that's right. But let me ask you this: so even on that note, like there are the purist side of me that thinks, we should wear the same shoes. We should look the same. We don't do game handshakes out there because that's not what serious teams do. Or is that something I'm just still holding on to that, like, do I really care about that? Does it really affect winning? Are we not a serious program if I let them go out and do some prepared handshakes? What are your thoughts on stuff like that?
Yeah, I think for me, because I was the same way as a head coach. We had to wear the same thing on the road, and I do like that. I still like that, like a warm-up suit or something. Everybody looks the same, and we do that here at Michigan State, I can tell you. But as far as shoes, I let that one go a few years ago because invariably there's going to be that one player, and sometimes it might be your best
player.
Coach. These, the Kyries don't fit me just right, or these don't do whatever. And rather than sitting there and saying, no, we're all doing that. And now this kid, first of all, he's a little edgy because he came to you with something and got shot down. And then the blister might be that big, but now he's going to let you know that it's that big. And rather than I think, again, we've got to be smart enough to pick your battles.
Yeah.
In this day and age, especially, I think you have to be very judicious. Which battles are important enough to fight and hold your ground, and which battles are not enough to let. And our thing is this: as long as it's not anything, we don't want somebody, we want you to be who you are, but at the same time, we don't want it to be so extravagant that you stick out like a sore thumb. And hey, look at, I know everybody, like there occasionally, I remember this over the years, players would test you a little bit. They turn their practice jerseys around. They'd wear them front, back. You know what I mean? So the big numbers would be on the front, the little number would be on the back, and, or they have their shorts or a different pair of shorts. We at Tennessee, for instance, everybody, it was laid out for them. The managers laid out the same practice gear. Well, then somebody would try to, I like these shorts better, and pull them on. And again, for me, my solution is that real simple. I'll just come over very politely and say, you know what? Hey, Lisa, could you please help me out here? Help us out. Everybody's got the same shorts, but you. I don't know what happened, but I talked to the managers. You got a pair in there. Could you help us out, please? And just, it's a small thing, but we need you to do this. Thank you. Before they even have a chance to respond, I know you're going to help me out on this. Thank you. And, I'm letting them know I'm not going to get all twisted up on this, but there again, as a leader, that's one of the areas I'm going to hold the line on. And I'm going to hold you accountable. We've all talked about this. The other thing too, Matt, along this line is another thought, and this might even apply certainly even in high school, but I know in college a couple of times we've asked players, okay, what should the punishment be? And sometimes it might be the team. Sometimes, again, it might be your captains or we'd sometimes have even a leadership group, take your 4 or 5 senior statespeople, whatever, and say, okay, Faith Christian guys, when a guy's late for conditioning, what should the punishment be? When a guy's late for practice, what should the punishment be? If a guy, talks back to a coach, what would you, and you might not do everything, but maybe 3 or 4 key things. Matt, a lot of times their punishments are more harsh than what we came up with.
Good call. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, you're giving them ownership, but now when those moments happen, you say, okay, this is what we agreed on. This is what the leadership group has agreed on. That we've talked as a staff. I've talked as a head coach with our leadership team. We've come up with these standards. And so now you are the enforcer of them, but they're the creator of them. So it's like, hey, man, you're late. Guess what? You're 5 minutes late. That means the team has 5 sprints. Let's go. Oh, well, coach, no, we talked. You guys did it. Boom, go. And I think, again, it becomes makes your job a little easier, but at the same time, you've got to hold the line in the areas that you think are important to hold the line. And certainly to me, that would be one of them. So yeah, the handshake thing, as long as it's not overly, like somebody does a different handshake, I'm good with that. If that handshake takes 90 seconds, I'm going to say, you know what, we got a game to play.
If they have a bull horns and they have the kid.
Yeah. Shorten it up. Okay. We're not here to see a Saturday Night Live skit. We're here to play a game. Get your thing. Let's go.
But Coach, I feel like everything you were talking about here with giving players ownership, that really translates well to the culture of your program also. How many times I know I have is I see a great acronym and man, all these words mean something really cool, or this is our slogan for the year. This is our word for the year. There's nothing wrong with those things. I'm not against acronyms. I mean, golly, PGC, SHAPE. I took that home when I directed for them. I took that home and I made it our culture for a couple of years until I realized I don't think our players care about these words nearly as much as I do.
Right.
And because they had no ownership in it, it was hollow or shallow. And so the way that you've talked about a lot, Tyler Costin talked about the stakeholders in your program. You need to have all the stakeholders. It's not just I'm not the only one. All the stakeholders, including parents at times too, especially at the high school level.
Yes.
On board with and understanding, and then giving them the ability to influence the culture and what standards we do have. I think what you just said about some of the parts within a team, it really works well with culture as well.
Yes, I would agree. I think it's so important. And again, it was I forget where I first learned it, but the phrase that makes it very concise for me: people will support what they have helped to create.
Yeah.
And I think it was Richard Marcinko, who was the founding member of SEAL Team 6. Back then they called it Green Team. And he put together a team. And one of the things, there's a book called The Real Team that he talks about each team member and who they were and the value they brought to the team, but also the formation of that team. And he mentions that, I think, once or twice in that book, as far as, a lot of times when you have high performers, and again, those guys are high, you and I are coaching people. They're not all high performers. Those guys are the best of the best. But his point was, when you have high performers, to just give them a rule book or slap down a piece of paper and say, here's what we're doing, they don't get nearly as invested as when they help to create, hey guys, what do you think we should do about this? Or when we're in this scenario, what do you think are the best ways to go about this? Hey guys, when you travel, what do you think when we all get off the bus? Should we have our headphones on or should we have our headphones off? I think we need to talk about that. And when they have input and they have, uniformity and agreement, it becomes powerful. Now, as opposed to you standing at the bus door and say, hey, headphones off. Those guys are checking each other a little bit, saying, hey, Mike, remember what we said? Headphones. Yeah. Hey, Matt, headphones off. It's powerful when it can start to permeate your culture, that it's not just you, but it's the members of your team that are helping to uphold that culture. That's very powerful.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.